Today we welcome Sean Lucas, who's the Senior Vice President and Head of APAC for Ascensus, a global software company providing digital experience platforms for landlords and workspace operators. Sean oversees Ascensus's regional business after building expertise in flex workspaces through senior leadership roles at IWG, focused on enterprise solutions, and also formerly as the head of flex advisory at Knight Frank. With all of this crazy uncertainty in the macroeconomic climate, I might say something that's going to age like sour milk, but even after speaking to a bunch of researchers, I think it's a good time to buy.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Catch that falling knife all the way down, all the way back up again.
Yeah.
The milk will be curdled if whenever this gets released, right? But no, I think whatever happens, at a macro level, probably safe to say, I think flexibility writ large, flexibility within the commercial real estate industry in particular, right, it's not going anywhere for the next few months at least.
Well, we were talking earlier, like without naming names, there's some certain large tenants and companies that, whether it's been catalyzed by this or it was always a conversation, this is like the straw that broke the camel's back, all this uncertainty. They're pushing for flexible solutions and think like banks and major tech companies. That doesn't mean they're not going to lease space, but they're looking to accommodate some form of uncertainty in their office strategy, meaning if they normally would take 10 floors at whatever NLA you want to imagine, they're keen to do 7, but facilitate that remaining deficit of 3 in some form of bespoke flex space within the building. So I don't mean necessarily have a random co-working operator and they're facilitating it. They're going to the landlord and going, hey, is there a way that you can reserve this space or do something with it till we need it, blah, blah, blah. So a bunch of that's happening right now. Yeah,
no, definitely. And I think in a previous life when I was on the operator side, I saw the sort of crescendo from 2017 to 2019 and just pre-COVID, and that was all sort of mass adoption due to such low vacancy and obviously sky high rents, and then sort of back the other way, right? I know the industry, sort of whether it be operators or landlords, has sort of been working through the last few years of disruption, but 100%, like my view is that anyone who has just basically untangled themselves from the lease obligations and the liability over the last 4 or 5 years, my assumption would be very few of them, and I'd count like even ourselves as a tenant, right? Very few of them would be rushing back in to sort of sign long-term leases. And I think to your point, whether it be landlord provided or sort of fairly bespoke and sort of operator sort of delivered solutions, I think it's all going to be up and to the right for the next few years.
And the theme of this pod is technology, because you play in that space a lot. And I really want to just start this open-endedly talking about physical versus digital assets within a building and that space, because the easiest way that I can think about it sometimes, even though tech is great, because it changes so quickly, it can age quickly too. So there's certain car brands that I adore where they very deliberately don't put any technology in it so that they're timeless, right? Because they might do they might put some certain dashboards or interfaces and it's this great model and car, but in a year or two's time, because things are evolving, it makes it look dated, right? And not a classic or something cool. That's just an analogy that resonates with me, because certain buildings I see even today, if they don't approach technology the right way or don't have things that are technology agnostic, it's kind of like you've just wasted a bunch of money on infrastructure. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you see some of the forward movers tackling tech in their buildings?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I think the industry is, due to the nature of all of this being static, right? Like you can feel and touch it, and it's sort of, again, long dated leases and huge development budgets and whatever else, and long timelines. To your point, like the technology adoption within any industry is sort of always going to be hamstrung by what the technology is sort of benefiting from both an experiential, but then also the operator's perspective. So I think commercial real estate and all types of asset classes within real estate are very quickly playing catch up. But you make an interesting point, right? Like you really need to sort of look at it across any sort of comparative industry as like there's convenience and then there's like luxury or experience. And so like you can have a car with not the sort of best and the greatest technology, but you sort of value it for other reasons, where my argument would be like anything that is end user sort of experience led, where convenience and ease of use is paramount.
Yep.
Like I don't want my train to work to go back to a coal train, right? Like if it's not on my phone and I can't tap and go and I can't get the sort of benefits of technology as they're delivered, then like I think real estate, you can have, again, like an experiential layer that doesn't need to have technology wrapped around it. Sure. But a lot of other people just want the best, quickest, most efficient sort of experience possible.
Yeah.
That's where technology comes
And
in.
I think ease of use is key. And I've personally experienced this even within the JLL Sydney office. We've got this dope room called the NXT room. Yeah, that's what they called it in Singapore. I don't know what we call it here in Sydney. It's just the cool tech room. You know?
Yeah. But it says what it does on the packet.
Yeah. And when it's great. It's got all these screens. You can do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's intimidating to use. And I've actually been to a bunch of other investor offices where they all have their own tech room.
Yeah.
But because no one knows how to use it properly, they don't use it.
Sort of stay clear.
Yeah, because the original business case, from my understanding, with all of these things, so not just JLL, is that there was always going to be a salary attached to running that room, or half a salary on site, which gets axed at some point.
Yeah.
And then because there isn't this element of education, you're suddenly requiring everyone to do the work and to figure it out. And it's quite complicated, right? I consider myself a tech person, but I would have to sit down and make an effort to go, I'm going to do my homework, study this in preparation for this meeting, versus ease of use. Someone's just going to, I want this, this, and this to happen, and they're going to facilitate it. So it's almost like the ease of use is paramount in commercial real estate when it comes to audiovisual and that kind of stuff. Because if it's too hard, it's just going to sit there. And then the value proposition of those rooms are front loaded, I feel. Like when you build it, it's super valuable, but then it slowly starts getting dated because new tech arrives.
Yeah. And that's what I think, like, you need to distill it back to like the end user experience. Right? You can have something super sort of cutting edge, and you will find a cohort of people that value that and embrace it and lean into it. But like almost everyone will want a intuitive, simple to use, normally mobile first experience in sort of any workplace, right? Whether that's sort of your own corporate space or a landlord delivered or operator sort of run flex space. And so I think where, again, the industry is getting to is like, you can have, from a digital infrastructure standpoint, you can have sort of the outliers of both ends, right? Something that's quite sort of long in the tooth and sort of quite traditional, I guess, in a sense. You can have some really crazy sort of jazzed out rooms with all of the best and the greatest. But to your point, not that's a bell curve. Not everyone's going to walk into those rooms and go, awesome, let's play around this. And I really value all the stuff that's been built here. So you really need to sort of look at the broad swath of all of the users in the middle and just make that as seamless as possible. That's our view anyway, right? You want to be able to come into a space, the physical experience, which is obviously still as important as ever, be complemented with the digital experience such that there isn't friction at any stage. Because I think when you've got, no matter what happens with sort of work from home policies and return to office mandates, you still need to make that initial experience so seamless and frictionless that you don't give people a reason to revert back to what they've known for the last 5 years, right? And I think that's why, no matter, again, what space you're in, if technology is doing what it should almost be invisible, right?
I agree.
And that's almost every industry, right? The less you think about it, the better it's running. Now, that's a double-edged sword. Unfortunately, like when it goes wrong, all you hear is complaints and issues. So like you never really get, or we'd claim, not to feel picked on, right? But you'd claim like you never really get the kudos for when it is working at its best.
Right.
You definitely hear the sort of the downside if anything isn't sort of working as it's meant to.
Yeah, it's kind of like, companies like Uber and stuff like that. When you think about it, it's like a taxi service, but it's actually